Hello, welcome to Estate Talks. Today we discuss HelpText, a tool to help with grief. We have Melissa Lunardini of HelpText to explain. So, Melissa, grief is inevitable, and when it's here, you can't shortcut it. You can't outrun it. How can a text help?
It's a great question. I think that grief is experienced differently by everyone, and therefore there's no one right or wrong way to manage and cope with grief. And what we have found over the years is that there are a portion of people who do really well in uh, one-on-one counseling and group counseling. They do well with support from family members and friends, and they also do support within their communities. But there is a small percentage of people, or a fairly large percentage of people actually, that would prefer to receive support via text message. And so what this does is offer a new opportunity for people to receive care in a very innovative way. That can help them through their grief journey. And we know that about 60% of the population do well with a little grief education, gentle tips and reminders, and somebody or some tool to validate their grief experience. And that's exactly what text will do.
So, loss is so personal. Is HelpText just a chat bot or is it AI? How does it actually work in real time? What can I expect?
Yes, you're right. Loss is very personal and unique to everyone. And the way that our text program works, HelpText, you're allowed to give us as much information as you would like about your person. So we do ask questions about your relationship, the age that you were when the age that you are, or the age of the person who died, the cause of death, the time since death, any anniversaries or holidays or important dates that are meaningful to you as a griever. And what we're able to do then is to curate really specific texts tailored to your needs. And that's what helps kind of this feel like a very personal interaction. Um, and I have an example of a text that I can share with you that
Oh,
might
thank
help explain what the experience is like. So the texts are really designed to be one way, meaning that you sit back as the griever and just receive the support from us. And if you are an executor or a trustee, you might have additional responsibilities. Opposed to other people who are just grieving a loss. And so this is an example of a text that we might send to an executor or a trustee who is also grieving a significant loss in their life. So the text reads, "Hi, Michael. As Graham's executor or trustee, you may get a lot of do this or do that advice, which can be really overwhelming. Remember that almost nothing after death is urgent. When feelings of urgency do come up, try the 3x3 test. So name 3 things that you need to take care of right away. And then ask yourself these questions. 1, must it happen today? 2, what happens if I don't do it? And 3, can someone else help me with it? These questions can help you prioritize what to do next. And so, as you can see, this is a very helpful text to receive. If you're feeling bogged down and overwhelmed by your responsibilities, you can really just pause and be like, okay, let me run all of my responsibilities through this 3x3 test.
Wow. Okay, very good. Well, Melissa is the head of clinical at HelpText, so we're especially happy to have her here on Estate Talks. Um, Melissa, to someone new to loss, could you describe the grief support landscape? You find yourself in this situation, and now what?
When you are asking about the grief support landscape, are you wanting me to discuss the different types of support options that somebody who's newly bereaved might have access to?
Sure. Yes, I think that would help anyone who's not familiar with this environment to um, react to it in a healthy way.
Yeah, yeah. So I think most people first prefer to lean on their family and friends for support. Then they might start to feel like their grief is a little too much for their family and friends to carry for them. And so they might then look to online and books and reading materials, so more of the self-help type stuff. And so they might look to listen to podcasts. They might gain reading materials just to educate themselves on the grief process and to feel normal in what they're experiencing. They might also go to social media, for example. Um, and what we know is that most people who experience a painful loss will do well within the first year or two being bereaved with just support from their family members and friends and some education and some coping strategies. There are some people, though, that do need a little bit more support or feel like they need more support. So then they might then go into their community and get peer-based counseling. So really seeking out support from people who've had shared lived experiences similar to their own. That can be through a support group, through one-on-one counseling, through community-based events. And then there's a small percentage of people who are really struggling because maybe they have other heavy life challenges that are also complicating their grief, and or maybe they just have a very traumatic grief story and experience, and those people may benefit mostly from therapeutic support. So I'm talking about like that one-on-one uh, therapy with a trained counselor who specializes in grief and loss. So those are all the types of support, and texting really falls into that. um, well, texting can be utilized actually with every type of loss in like in conjunction with it, or it can be used as a standalone grief support option.
Well, that I thank you for that. Uh, so many people are often in a cloud, for lack of a better word, and that's probably cliche, but not always knowing how to handle these emotions, these feelings, not understanding what is normal, what's not normal. Uh, the thing that attracted me to help text was that it makes a space for grief. And I get tired of the voice inside my own head. So this just would pop up because I lost a friend recently and I had a subscription, and it was just another way to think about my friend, the loss, how I was dealing with it. So twice a week is the normal subscription text. Is that correct?
Yes, yes. We'll send early on in the subscription, we send a few more texts just because we feel like when people sign up, they are seeking out additional support and therefore probably need some extra support. But then after 2 weeks or so, it then does go to a normal cadence of twice a week. And then we also acknowledge special dates and meaningful holidays for you. So if you have a birthday, anniversary, a death anniversary, or a holiday that really is significant for you, if you let us know, we will reach out and send additional support around that time, because those are the times that people really tend to feel very isolated, or that family and members and friends tend to forget about. And therefore, we will like text family members and friends to remind you or remind them to show up for you as the griever. That's one of the cool things about the subscription, is that for every one person that signs up, they can invite two family members or friends to sign up as their supporters. And then we'll text them one text a week that really gives them a practical tool, or teaches them something about your grief to help normalize the experience for you. So that way you feel more supported by your family members and friends.
Oh, okay. Well, that's interesting and important. So as a gift, I imagine this would be somewhat more practical, not to compete with, but more pragmatic than flowers. I could see this as a very useful, helpful, personal gift.
Yeah, it's been great. It's one of the things that I use as a gift myself, because we know that although flowers and bringing food over and cards are very intentional and meaningful, and they've been used for centuries, right, as a
Sure.
standard sympathy gift. What we know about grief, though, is that grief lasts a lot longer than those sympathy gifts do. And so isn't it a beautiful thought to be able to offer a sympathy gift that companions people on their grief journey for the first year after they're bereaved? It's really letting somebody know that, hey, I get that your grief isn't time bound and that you're going to need support throughout this first full year. And even for some people moving into the second, third, or fourth year, and our texts can offer support that long as well. But it's really just saying, hey, I get it. I get that this is going to be hard for you, and I want to give you something that will last the trajectory of your grief. And by the way, you can sign me up as a supporter, and I will be there too to support you alongside your journey.
The texts are intended as one way, inbound. So it's not a chat, but if someone does text back, help text is prepared for that, no?
Yes, yes. So it is one way, because we're designed to be a public health intervention model, which means that we hope to support large segments of the population who are struggling with grief and loss. And so because of that, we do provide support one way. However, because it's text message, people can text you back. It's an open channel, right? But we do have a team of mental health and bereavement specialists that review every inbound text message and will reply to text messages under certain conditions. And we do manage expectations along the way. So when people reply, they get an automatic text saying, our team will review what you've written, and if it warrants a response, you'll hear from us. And people also acknowledge that they understand it's a one-way and not two-way therapy when they go to sign up. But our text, when we do respond, it's because we're responding to somebody who maybe perhaps is in crisis and needs immediate attention. So our team will definitely address that. If somebody has a question about needing extra resources or needing to be connected with somebody locally in their community, we'll respond and find support there. Perhaps they have a general question about grief and loss. Our team will take a second to respond to that. Or maybe they need help with their profile, and we'll go ahead and help them fix their profile if there's a need there. So we do interact. But it's very limited in the ways that we interact.
Yes, okay. Well, it's good that it is available if needed, and I think that's very thoughtful. Thank you, Melissa. Is there anything else that people should know about HelpText that we have not covered?
I think it's important to know that sometimes if you're feeling, we notice that a lot of people early in their grief, so within the first 6 months of being bereaved, tend to sign up for this type of support. And I think that's because the idea of going outside of your house, jumping on a therapy call, or going into a group can feel very overwhelming. And you might not have the emotional capacity to attend to those types of traditional grief support options. And so what text does is it is a low burden way to still receive support and still feel very normalized in your grief process. We see inbound, so people respond to us daily, and we get things like, oh, thank you so much. I was thinking I was losing my mind, but your text just really made me see that it's very normal in this grief process. Or, thank you, I'm going to try that coping skill. I've never thought of that before. Or, your messages have been a lifeline for me because I don't have the support that I was hoping to have. And so when you think about trying something new in the world of grief, I always say try everything, because you never know what's going to work for you in terms of a support option. And not everything does, but the one thing that our texts do is really open your eyes to the amount of tools that are out there and the type of coping strategies that you can try. And so at minimum, what it does is give you education, give you resources, and give you tips to really help you manage your grief. And in that regard, I think it's a very beautiful service. So
Executorium does these spots to educate executors. There is no quid pro quo. We don't get any kind of commission or anything on these. I just think executors need to know about help texts, and any avenue to help you unburden yourself as you're going through a loss is to be encouraged. Thank you very much, Melissa, for helping us understand help texts, and thank you very much for watching Estate Talks.